Welcome to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast with Darren Mitchell. If you're a sales leader looking to take your leadership to a whole new level, then this is the podcast for you. We'll be exploring tips, techniques, and strategies to help you take your leadership to the exceptional level and allow you to enjoy more money, more meaning, and better sales results. Welcome back to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast, and it is my absolute privilege and pleasure to welcome to the podcast a lady that has recently been anointed as a certified speaking professional. For those that don't know that, that is the top, was it top 10% in the world now,
Yeah,
Dixie?
I think so. It's in the top numbers, yes.
A CSP, originally from the land of the long white cloud in New
Yeah,
Zealand,
correct.
currently coming in from Bali because she loves the weather, she loves the time zone, and she's a digital nomad that's been traveling the last few years. Uh, Also known as, I've got to say this, Dixie, also known as the Word Witch. The Word Witch. You're a publishing coach, international speaker, hence the CSP, publishing strategist, owner and founder, and I guess CEO of Indie Experts Publishing and Author Services, and the author of 25 books. Welcome to the podcast, Dixie
Thank
Carlton.
you. Hi, Darren. How you going? Good to be here. Thank you.
Now, looking forward to this. It's just in the preamble we were talking and learning a little bit about each other, and you were saying that Bali is a great time and a great place in the world to work from. It's got phenomenal internet, but it's also really well positioned for various other time zones in the world. Although you were telling me you did a workshop a couple of days ago in Spain, for people in Spain, it was 2:30 in the morning. That's
Yeah,
nuts.
it was nuts, but in actual fact, if you can manage it right, you get 4 or 5 hours sleep beforehand, and you're incredibly fresh, and the phone doesn't interrupt. No interruptions at that time of the day. It's very easy to be very focused, and it was a great workshop. So, yeah, you kind of, swing with the tides when it comes to when things happen in the business that I'm in. So, yeah, timing, it's all good.
Love it, love it. So let's talk about that business that you're in, and I'd love to. I always love to delve into a little bit about the past of the guest and what has led you to work in the experts industry, not only just as a speaker, but also as a person that's working with lots of authors, and you've helped hundreds, if not thousands. What did I get the number right?
Mm. Hundreds, yeah.
Hundreds, soon to
About
be
400.
thousands. Soon to be thousands. You're a big thinker. Where did it all start for you? Because I'm really intrigued as to how it started and what's led you down this path of working in this expert industry.
Oh, that's such a great question. And the answer is more than 30 seconds long, so I'll keep it brief. But essentially, I had a promotional products company that did really well. And then from there, when I sold that, I got into coaching. And as part of my coaching training, I started to sat down. I had 3 years restrained to trade from my promotional products company. And so I sat down and wrote a book about everything I had been telling all of my clients for the previous 10 years. And that kind of accidentally managed to find its way to America, got me a passport to go and stand on a stage in America and speak about that. And then through that process, I suddenly started helping other people doing their books and cottoned on to the fact quite quickly that there's a good relationship between nonfiction authorship and speaking on stages. And I am a prolific writer. I've always loved words, hence why some people call me the word witch. I love to play with words, and I just started writing more books and helping more people work with their books. And because of the connection with the professional speaking industry, most of my authors over the years have been professional speakers.
Right.
And so, or industry leaders and captains of industry or trailblazers who are wanting to shake up the world in some way. And so it's just over the last 20 years or so grown from that. And yeah, I get to hang out and learn from and work with and develop content with some of the most interesting people in the world. So I love my work. It's great.
Well, and we were just talking before that, it's not the type of work that lends itself to a 9 to 5 because there's so much happening, but there's also so many different people that are located in different corners of the world
Mm,
that enables you to, I guess, write your own ticket, be your own boss to a degree, and work with people all over the place.
yeah.
Um, from a credibility perspective, you mentioned before that the connection between the books and the stage speaking is strong. And you think about most professional speakers, most, if not all of them, would have some form of book or many books behind them. Also, from the perspective of people who are working in an industry, such as sales leaders or corporate leaders or
Mm.
CEOs, you talk a lot about the book as being a credibility booster.
Yeah.
And people, because I firmly believe that everybody's got a message. Now, I've written a book, albeit an ebook, but I think there's a book in all of us, and my book is coming, titled To Be Determined. What is it about that? Because I'm sure that you're working with a lot of experts who are speakers, but also do you work with people who perhaps are in a corporate career who are looking for a way of differentiating themselves in their marketplace, and a book is a great way to do that.
Very much so. Many of my clients come to me because they're either coming out of corporate or they are in corporate or they're in a position within their industry where they want that credibility and they want that credibility to go beyond what their brochures say about them, or they want that credibility as an industry leader because they've come up with something new. And sometimes I'll work with people who will say, instead of doing my master's or an MBA or a PhD even, or I've got a PhD, but I want to reach more of the commercial market than the academic market, they'll do a book instead. So they'll work with me, and we often joke with my authors, and they say it's kind of like getting an MBA in expertise working with me because we deal with all of the ins and outs of how do you get that credibility to work for
Mm,
you? How do you get your content across from pages to stages? So I work a lot in the space of trying to educate and empower people who have got strong messages or great stories. And sometimes it's memoirs, and sometimes it's a memoir with a really strong message or exposing great content in other ways that might start someone thinking or start a new business.
mm,
Uh, we work in the space of making sure that my authors are well grounded, well educated to not fall down the rabbit holes of making a lot of mistakes that a lot of first time authors make, to ensure that when they go out there and they say, hey, here's my book, this is what it does for you, this is how you need to now think about this industry or this idea.
mm,
A book is a, I'll just refresh that. A book is something that instead of reading a brochure, if you're reading a book, you're reading it in a different way. Like there's a different mindset. So you'll lean into a story. If you're reading or listening to a book, including audiobooks, you'll
mm.
listen in a way that's quite different than you, the consumer, the way you will read a brochure. It doesn't matter how good the brochure is.
Yeah.
Because you'll lean into the stories more. You'll adopt a different mindset. You'll grab a cup of tea and you'll sit down and you'll relax and read, or maybe read it late at night or before you go to bed. You don't do that with brochures. You don't do
Mm,
that with prospectuses and catalogs. So the book can be really powerful in that way. But essentially, you also have a, a means of developing content that reaches out to specifically the market that you want to reach. Now, you and I both worked in sales for a number of years. So before I fell into publishing, I was very much in a sales industry role. And one of the first things we were taught was it takes 7 contact points
mm,
before the buyer is ready to buy. And I think it's now up to 11 or 16 contact
yeah.
points. A book warms up your market or your prospective client far more quickly than even having to go through 7 points of contact.
Mm. And just by having a book now, because I want to talk about credibility and some of the mistakes, because there's probably dodgy books out there and books that are full of fluff, and they think they're good, but they don't really tell you much.
We call them
Um,
book thumpers.
that's right. Because
Yeah.
I just at a macro level, I'd like to think about, because I do speak to a lot of people who have books.
Mm,
And I asked them the question, what was the I guess the genesis for wanting to write a book? And many of them said I had a story in me, I had a concept I wanted to put out to the world. I wanted to be able to get access to a wider genre of people in my niche that perhaps I wouldn't necessarily get access to when I'm in my role, for example, if they're still in corporate.
mm,
There's also a theme that a lot of them say was kind of like a business card that I,
mm,
it's a business card that advertises what I do, but it's not saying, come and do work with me, but it's educating people and telling a story and
Mm.
developing the credibility through that. So there's the know, like, and trust factor that starts to generate. What's your take on that?
You're completely right in that there are a lot of people that will write books for a bunch of different reasons. And a lot of them will sit down and just write their stuff. And we do literally call them desk thumpers. They are a walking business card. And I mean, there's a lot of $10 business cards out there. And a
Mm,
lot of them will go the same way as every other 30-cent business card, unfortunately. And the point of writing a book to increase your credibility or enhance and expose your credibility is that you want to take time to be really clear about who your market is.
mm,
You want to make sure that you are talking directly to that person in that market, that you can describe that person as well as any other marketing strategy talks about doing. But you're wanting to then almost be writing a letter to that person. You want to be so clear on who that person is that they lean in and really engage with you even before they get to the end of the book.
mm,
And then what you want to be doing is making sure that your book highlights all the way through why that person should want to know more about you or engage you further after they finish reading the book. So you use the book strategically, but not in a way that feels salesy.
mm.
And the best books that work the hardest for people are the ones that basically say, if we talk about commanding presence rather than demanding presence, they command the presence, they command your attention because they're good, because
Yes.
they're interesting, they've got high readability, high credibility and quality of information that people want to read more of. So when they finish that book, they know exactly where to go and what to do, whether it's to get you to come in and sell to them or train their team or develop the something or another else or coach them or help them start a revolution.
Mm.
So you're making sure that all the way through you are strategically planning the end in mind. And unfortunately, you get a lot of books that, as I say, desk thumpers, that are just simply someone rethinking how they would maybe write a brochure or, hey, this is me, pay attention. And they're missing the point of how to actually fully engage the readers.
Well, just on that, Dixie, because when you think about, and look, I live in a bit of a bubble myself because most of the people I speak to on the podcast, I guess the vast majority of them would have a book that's either just been released, is being released, or like you has 25 of them in the library. Um, the challenge then is the credibility. So how do you come across people within corporate or business people that maybe have a question mark over, well, do I really have knowledge or do I really have a perspective that people want to know, right? Because I just reflect on what I do outside of this, and that is facilitation, training, and so forth. And there's a lot of concepts that I look at that I teach that
Mhm.
sometimes I just assume that everybody would know that because I think it's based on common knowledge,
Yeah.
but it's not.
Well, it's interesting you say that because I think we all have a little bit of imposter syndrome in us when we start to think about writing a book. And I deal with that a lot with people. And often people will come to me, and the process that I work through with them is we start with, well, why should you write this book? Why should you write this book now? And who's going to care?
Mm,
Like, what is it that you really want to say? What is your core message? If you had just one letter to write, one speech to give, one book to write, what would you want to be saying? And so then what I do is I dive in really carefully and let's unpack exactly what your level of expertise is. So yours is a really good topic, Darren, because you talk about leadership and sales,
mm,
two of the most commonly written about things in the book industry.
yeah.
How do you stand out as being someone who's got something significantly more interesting than just another leadership book or just
Mm,
another sales techniques book? How do you, where is your genius within that topic? So I work on making sure that we unpack that and find ways for you to articulate it so that your IP, your absolute intellectual property, is identified, revealed, protected, and then we develop ways to write that.
mm.
And that's not an easy thing for a lot of people. Some people just gravitate to it very easily and they say, I've got this great book. Like, for example, we've just done a book for a woman in Luxembourg, and she writes about the friction within teams and how friction is really good and really valuable if leaders can tap into how to unpack the friction in their teams. It's a really great concept. It's not something that's commonly written about in leadership,
Yeah.
but we've managed to figure out this is how this is unique, and the parts that are unique, the diagrams, the frameworks that she uses to do that, we unpack all of that and write that as her
Mm,
book, right? So there are ways of deep diving into where the uniqueness lies. And then once that is usually revealed with a client or an author, then it's easy to deal with whatever imposter syndrome there is, because it's like,
mm,
well, you've managed to tap into something that is unique. It is different. It is something that people want to know about. What are the most commonly asked questions that you get tackled with when you're sitting at a dinner party and you say, I do this,
mm.
you know?
Yeah. Interesting. It's fascinating
Mm,
because I just wonder how many people out there, because I hear it all the time that everybody's got a book in them because everybody has
mm,
a story to tell.
mm.
And you should have a story to tell and a message to teach, either irrespective of whether you're a messenger, whether you're a teacher, trainer, whatever. There's always a message because you're influencing people.
Yeah.
But I just wonder how many people stop because of that imposter syndrome, or they think, you know what, I do things, but I just do things, and I can't explain how I do things or why I do things. It just works. But how do I articulate that? And that's what you're saying you can help unpack and do.
Yeah, yeah. And, I've worked with, more than 300 authors now over 24 years. And what I've identified are specific ways to help unpack that content out of your head. Because sometimes, like, I had a guy about 4 years ago, he was a doctor, and he had been struggling to write a book, and he'd written 80,000 words. And I just want to say 80,000 words for a non-fiction book is two books, maybe three books.
Wow.
Yeah, but so he had struggled to finish his book over 2 years and had written 80,000 words. And the first thing I said to him was, let's unpack this and let's identify who's. So we ended up with two books. One was specifically targeted towards the patients,
Hmm.
and the other was specifically targeted towards other medical professionals and how they would meet in the middle on this particular topic that he was an expert in.
Yeah.
It was easy for me to see where the differences lay. And if we had started at the beginning instead of saying, uh, go ahead and write your book and then come back to me, which is what a lot of publishers do, then we were able to say, look, let's structure this starting from the beginning of what is it that you're trying to achieve. And maybe there is more than one book in you. Maybe
Mm,
this is a series, and often a series is a lot more marketable and a lot easier to articulate the different angles that you're wanting to cover within a series than just writing one book. And a lot of
yeah.
people think, oh, I've just got to write a book, and I'm only ever going to write one book because it's really hard to do. And so I'm going to put everything into that one book, which is usually the biggest challenge and the biggest stumbling point. And so we figure out ways to unpack that or go. Ideally, I love to start working with people from the beginning when they're still saying, I know I've got a book in me. I know I could do this. This is who I want to write it for. And where do I start? And that's even easier than working with someone who we rescue further down
Yeah,
the
well, I mean, 80,000 words is
line.
I'm sure there are people that read books of 80,000 words, but like I've just read a book from a contact of mine who's I think he's written about 10 himself. And he's written two at the same time, and they've both become best-selling books on Amazon. And
Cool.
this latest one is only 17,000 words.
Mm.
So one of the questions I was going to ask you was, is there such thing as an ideal length, or is it like asking how long's a piece of string?
A little bit of both. So the ideal length these days is that you keep them short to the point. So a 25 to 35,000 word target is ideal.
Hmm.
Something a little bit less than 20,000, that's a good short romp through the park.
Hmm.
Uh, 40,000 plus is a marathon.
Okay.
Um, so you want to be thinking about the reader, and is that reader going to have time to read the book? We all hear about people that have got 6 books beside the bedside, and we're kind of working through, each one, and everyone only gets to 3 chapters and then they're done because the next one comes along. If
Yeah.
you can keep your reader engaged fully with really good content, good breadcrumbing of good content that's still to come throughout the whole book, and you use good stories, and stories can also be good case studies, and that also includes even with anonymity and protecting
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
But if you have that, and then your objective is to get people to finish reading the book, then you want to be sitting at around about, I don't know, 140 to 200 pages.
Yeah.
But even 100 pages is still
Mm.
good enough if the content is strong. And
Yeah.
again, you want to get them through to the end of the book. So then when they get to the end of the book, you've then instructed them or given them an invitation to take things to another level and take them to their website and give them more resources or invitations to, engage further.
Mm.
But essentially, you want to think about, how long should my chapters be? Do I want to do something where this person, let's say, for example, you're writing a book where it's mostly going to be read by really, really busy housewives
Yeah.
or really busy mothers. I don't even know if we're allowed to use the word housewives anymore. Let's say working
Home
mothers.
engineers.
Yeah, home engineers. And they're exhausted. And, my daughter-in-law is one of these people. Small baby, too tired to read, etc. But short, sharp paragraphs that she can read, just a little bit at a time, 5 minutes at a time, very, very good. Whereas you get
Mm.
someone who says, look, I go to bed or I'll spend a Sunday afternoon doing my productive reading, and I'll read for 2 hours at a time. Great. That
Yeah.
person could potentially finish a really good book in that time. And
Mm.
that's what you want to be looking at. Who's going to
Yeah.
read it? How long does it work for them? And how do you make sure they stay engaged and stay engaged to the end?
Which is essentially sales 101, because you talk a lot about clarity, having authority, and also the precision. It's knowing your ideal customer avatar. So in the case
Mm,
of the area that you're going to become an expert in, or you are an expert in, who is the person that I'm talking with? So you spent some time just before talking about you need to have a conversation with that person, and you need to be almost writing a letter to that person. That's how you
mm,
do it, and that enables you to, I guess, be crystal clear, but probably also
mm,
enables you to remove some of the, I don't know, you call it waffle or filler words and stuff like that to generate that level of authority. How hard is that process though? And how hard is it for you when you're working with experts who have so much to say, such as this doctor who wrote 80,000 but was a little bit confused in terms of maybe the ideal customer? How
mm,
hard was it to then get them to actually separate it into two, maybe to remove some stuff so it distills it down to the point where the reader cannot wait to turn the page and they don't want to put the book down?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I don't know how hard it is for most people. I come from a background of strong sales development back in my youth. Then I worked in radio and got more sales development. And then I worked in marketing and sales combined.
Mm,
And then I studied for 2.5 years to be a highly qualified coach. And then I started writing books and working in the publishing industry. So for me, I find it really easy to have those conversations. And
mm,
like a couple of my clients, one of them said to me a few years ago, Dixie, you're like an iron fist in a velvet glove. There's no guesswork. You just come out and you'll say exactly what I need to hear. You don't just,
mm,
blow smoke up my skirt. And I love that because I I know I'm direct and I know that I have the ability that I've honed over all of these skill factors over many years now to be able to have those conversations and still instill the confidence and the clarity in the people that I work with. So they don't run away feeling like I've, attacked them for
yeah.
having too many words or, used too many big words. Um, it's a conversation. It comes back to, as you say, sales 101. You
Mm,
sit down, you figure out, well, who's your market? What is it that you're trying to achieve? How many people can you accommodate answering your advertisement?
mm,
What is your next steps after people respond to your advertising? How do you want people to react? So this comes back down to sales 101,
mm.
diagnosis what is it? Prescription without diagnosis is malpractice.
Yes.
We used to
Yep.
hear. many years ago. And it's the same thing. You work through what is it that you're trying to achieve. And in any sales situation, you want to know that you've got all of the information at your fingertips before you start putting the proposal together. And
Mm.
it's the same with the book. So you
Yeah.
work with someone on, well, what is it that you're trying to achieve with this book? How do you want it to work for you? How do you want it to impact on the person who's going to read it? How is it going to enhance your ability to have a longer engagement process or a sales process with the reader?
Yeah. Yeah.
And once you start with that, as long as you keep the plan in mind, then the rest is easy.
Mm.
And so I've developed processes over the years that just keep me on track and keep my team on track with what is it that we're trying to achieve here. And it
Yeah.
just makes it easy.
Yeah. And then it's almost, and you don't want to, I don't want to simplify it, but it almost becomes then plug and play because there's a system that you create,
Yeah,
that you put in
exactly.
place. And when you
Yeah,
think about that, when it comes to marketing from a company point of view, they'll go through the same sort of process because they have to try to establish credibility. How
yeah,
do we potentially stand out in the sea of sameness that's out there? And I did want to talk to you a little bit also about AI and how that plays a part, if it does,
mm,
around that.
sure.
Because there's lots of organizations out there that are saying, well, we've got the best widget, we've got the best
Mm,
of this, and it's all look at
mm,
me, look at me, look at me. And I
mm.
think that actually diminishes credibility in my eyes for that organization if they have to almost sing from the rooftops that we are the best, come and check us out, versus
Yeah,
somebody who's quite subtle. And this is why you talk about building through messaging, not necessarily through volume, and being really targeted. So you're talking a language that
mm.
gets people to say, hey, I'm going to put my hand up because Dixie's actually talking a language that is like I'm talking to myself.
Well, I'll give you a great example of a book that we did last year, which is called The Hidden Mechanics of IP. All right. Now, we wrote this, or the author wrote this. She's a top IP strategist in the world.
Yeah,
And so she works for a fairly large IP law firm.
yeah.
Um, and what what that book has ended up doing for her and for that company is saying, we have someone who is an absolute genius strategist. This is her content. This is what she would say to you if she had 6 hours to sit here and say it to you, potential clients.
Hmm.
And so we've got all of this great content. We're demystifying some of the things that people come to us and say, oh, we think we'd understand about copyright and trademarking and patenting, but hey, tell us what the reality is. So they've put all of that into a book, made her, well, she's the person who's the author of that, but she's
Mm,
also the star of their show, right?
right.
So the head strategist for their law firm, their IP law firm, is now someone who is a recognized best-selling author who stands and speaks on stages and delivers training programs and strategy sessions around the world.
Yeah.
And this profiles her as being absolutely brilliant at what she does, makes it easier for all of their clients to understand the fundamental basics before they even start working with anyone in their company. And they can trot her out, possibly not the right word, but they can feature her in their marketing as being, we've got this person. This is so cool. We are the leaders in this space.
Yeah.
And that as a marketing strategy for them is far more powerful than taking out a bunch of ads on a newspaper or anything like that. It
Yes.
just says that
Absolutely.
we've created a high level book.
Yeah.
The One of the people who has endorsed it, for example, is one of the former the CEO of Saatchi and Saatchi. And you get industry professionals at the highest levels endorsing a really good book like that, which is what
Mm,
she's done.
mm.
And you get people saying, oh, this is what we need to know. This is what we need to understand before we invest all this money in this part of our business.
So that's really interesting. Because I love the credibility play there, and
Mm,
that just says, hey, if we have a choice between multiple different organizations, we're probably gonna go to the one that we believe has the most credibility, such as there's a book, there's credentials behind it, there's people from Saatchi and Saatchi as the managing director, CEO that's endorsing this as well. So we'll lean into that.
mm.
So I love your thoughts on uh, being able to back up what's in a book
Mm.
So you talked before about going from being an author to then from the pages to the stages.
From pages to
And
stages.
this is potentially where AI may come into it, all right? So people
Mm.
are writing a book. They put out their best work. Can they back it up on stage? Can this person who's an IP expert, for example, back it up with the credibility of sitting in front of a board at an organization who has got the book and has read the book and add even more value? So there's two parts to this question. One is
Mm.
the credibility angle, all right? So it has to be a match. And then I'll ask another one.
Okay, so yes, the credibility. Now, I mean, Kate Wilson, the author of that particular book, uh, she's been working in this industry for 40 years.
Mm,
So she already had the credibility. She had the awards. She had all of these other things. What this book shows for their potential clients is that they're interested in educating and supporting their clients with empowering them with education and information, not just trying to sell them a strategy session or sell them a whatever big
yeah,
bill event.
yeah,
So they have demonstrated that they're interested in their expertise being featured as part of the whole equation. So if she's sitting down or they're sitting down in a boardroom situation and rolling out a strategy or rolling out a pitch to do a strategy, they've got that in their favor.
yeah,
And so they're not just relying on, hey, this is our marketing stuff. This is all of our prospectus. This is what we have put together in the past. This is all of the fancy stuff we'll show you in a glossy brochure.
yeah,
They've got far better levels of credibility being staked on the table, which
yes.
is great.
And that's the key thing. You cannot write a because there are a lot of brochures out there that
Mm,
are filled with vaporware
yeah.
that they make promises, but they can't necessarily deliver on those promises. So they set an expectation in the marketplace,
Mm,
and then when the marketplace puts a hand up and has an experience, the experience is not matched by the expectation that was created by the brochure
mm.
or by the book. And hence that was my question in terms of you've got to make sure you can back it up. What you've put in a book, you've got to back it up. Now, go,
So can I just add to that?
please.
The whole issue of them being able to stand on stage and deliver, and you've raised the question of AI. AI, a lot of people go to AI and think, oh, I'll just get AI to write my book for me or write it with me or, whatever.
Yeah.
Um, you cannot trust AI to deliver or to create the stories or write the case studies or develop the level of content that you need to demonstrate as an expert to write a high quality book.
Mm,
Now, yes, I know that there will be people saying, oh, but of course, if I just put all of this information in, it can just, rework the content for me and then whatever. The problem with that as well is that if your book is written by AI, you do not own a copyright for that.
mm,
So you want to make sure that if you are doing anything with AI with your book, you are doing it strategically, carefully, and with massive ethics in
mm.
place. So,
Yeah.
for example, I'll give you another example of a book that we did last year, a couple of years ago, for my podcast buddy, Brad Houck. Now, he wrote a book about leadership, and he's also a volunteer firefighter and has been doing that for about 30 years. So he wrote a book about leadership, and it's called Run Towards the Flames.
Hmm.
Now, a lot of the story that he put into the book was, just talking about the conversations or the instructions that might have come through from people or conversations that were had. And it was kind of a little bit dry. So I said, let's take some of these pieces of the conversation, let's put that into AI, get AI to then write that as a dialogue version so I can show you how this
Mm.
would change the format. And so we did that. And it was like, wow, that's really
Yeah.
cool. Instead of saying, and Bob said we should go here and blah, 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 it was like, and then I had this conversation with Bob. Bob said, we need to go here, and this is why we need to go here. And I replied, etc., etc., etc.
Mm.
So you had a dialogue, you had something that was far more interesting for the reader than just this was said, this was said. And then we could say, right, so now let's write this and massage it with the human element to make sure it is 100% fabulous and that
Hmm.
the reader is not going to pick up, for example, that this may have been explored with doing with AI.
Yeah.
And sometimes we'll use AI for things like, well, if we've got this bio or this introduction, how can we make it a little bit more uh, user friendly for this particular audience or this particular situation. So we'll
Yeah.
use AI for that sort of thing. But anyone who thinks that AI can just take the information and write the book for you, you're dreaming, because
Mm.
people are becoming also incredibly discerning about what they are reading and what they are seeing.
Yeah.
And you have to be mindful of that.
Totally. Totally. And that goes for everything related to sales. I just had another conversation with a gentleman this morning who's working on what he calls sounds counterintuitive, small large language models. And that is, instead
Oh,
of
I love
having Chat GPT in the cloud, he's actually building software that you could have a localized large learning model engine on your Mac, for example, that
that. Mm,
learns you. So it becomes your voice. So it's your active
mm,
voice. So that it's still human. You're still utilizing AI, but it's
mm,
your words and it's your IP
yeah.
that it's learning how you speak and what your expressions are and so forth, which is
Mm.
fascinating
I
because
love that. Yeah.
there's so many people out there that just read proposals or emails and stuff, and so that's just written by AI. Flick,
Mm,
flick. Now, Dixie, the other question I was going to ask you around this, of course, is we always talk in sales about leaving something for the prospect, for the customer, or in this case, the reader of a book, to want them to want to take some next step.
mm,
So, your thoughts around when you're working with, and just take the idea of the lady that was writing the IP based book, right? If you give a book to somebody, and in that book is the playbook, it is everything you need to know.
mhm.
What's your thoughts on it? And I'm not saying is there a percentage, but what's your thoughts on giving away everything versus holding something back that is enough for them to want to engage with you after reading a book?
That's such a great question. Let me put it to you this way with another question.
Mm.
If you thought about how long it would take for you to fully articulate everything you know about leadership and sales, how many hours do you think that would be?
Oh, I wouldn't even hazard a guess.
All right. So a
What?
book, right? So a book is ideally going to be between 3 and 6 hours worth of that content.
Yeah,
So when you write your book, if you write it really clearly and well, which is why also I say a series is often a good idea.
yeah,
When you write your book and you give great content, you want to make sure that the author, that the readers understand, and it's the same with a keynote speech. So a keynote
mm,
speech is only 60 minutes, right? You want to make sure that the audience or the reader understands this is me scratching the top of the iceberg. If you want
yeah,
to dive into how this works for you specifically, then you need to have a conversation with me. And I
yeah,
invite you to go to this page on my website, download this checklist or this quiz or this whatever, or take these extra bonus products,
mm,
and then have a conversation with me about how I can then, or how my team or my company can help you
yeah,
with this more. This is my best sales strategy. This is my best opening the door to how much I can help you
mm,
within these pages or on this stage.
yeah, yeah.
And that's
Good
how you
answer.
want to be positioning it. Yeah.
Good answer. Because
Yeah.
it's interesting because a lot of marketers out there say just give everything away for free. If you give or and if your good stuff you give away is that good, just imagine what it will be when they pay for it.
Exactly. I mean, there's a lot of people that, as you say, that recommend giving away everything. Um, when you give away a lot, you should also be subtly, or in some cases not so subtly, educating who you're giving it to, that I can afford to give this stuff away because, yeah, this is really good content. You
Mm,
can just imagine how good the stuff is that people have to pay for.
yeah, yeah,
I mean, I give
yeah.
away my book, some of my books, for example, on how to write books,
Mm,
knowing full well that really smart, savvy people can probably do a really good job of writing their book after reading one of my books.
yeah,
But if they're working with me, they're getting so much more.
yeah.
And I think that's the way that you need to approach anything that you're doing, even in sales. You
Mm,
always want to leave something on the table to come back for.
yeah. Yeah, it's always the next step, and it's not necessarily the ascension model, but it is the
Mm.
next step that you want them to take,
Mm.
right? And
Which is
for
the end in mind. Start
the
with
end in
the
mind.
end in mind.
Totally,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah.
Love this, love this. Hey, I'm also conscious you're about to get on a 3 hour conversation as well, so I'll bring this to a close and respect your time.
Thank
Really
you.
love this conversation. Thank you so much for doing so. For people who want to know more about you in terms of the work that you do and just learning about messages and clarity and maybe writing a book and so forth, where's the best place for them to connect?
If they go to our website, which is www.indieexpertspublishing.com, there's loads of information there and many points along the way that you can, reach out to us. And if you use the word exceptional in your message line, I'll
Yeah,
make sure that you get a, extra bonus gift from me in the shape of one of our books to help you stay inspired and understand what you're getting when you
brilliant.
have a conversation with me. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate that. I'll put that in the show notes. And is it okay if I let people know if they want to connect with you personally, LinkedIn is the best place to do that?
LinkedIn is fantastic, and again, mention you, and I'll give you the VIP treatment if you've come through a recommendation from you. But yes, LinkedIn is great, and of course the website it makes it easy. And of course, Google any of my books or go to
Mm,
Amazon, find any of my books on Amazon, and
yeah,
and download or have a look. Yeah,
brilliant. Awesome. I'll put all that on the show notes. That is fantastic. Dixie, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast.
thank
Good
you.
luck as you continue to dominate, and best of luck also having just been recently anointed, as we mentioned at the start of the show, as the certified speaking professional, I should say. That's what it stands for,
Thank
right?
you. Thank
So
you so
all the
much.
best. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to the Exceptional Sales Leader podcast. I trust the information in this episode has been helpful in your journey towards becoming exceptional. And remember, please take the time to rate the show, subscribe to the show so other people can find it. But also, if I can help you, jump on my calendar, go to leadwithdarren.com and let's have a conversation about how I can help you along your journey to being exceptional.